The new Super Troops will change Clash of Clans forever. Guys, this is not just new troops. This is an entirely different mechanic that's going to have massive implications on the future of this game and competition. Now, as far as the spring update goes, that's the one that's coming up very, very soon. They have already announced that they've got 4 specific Super Troops ready to go. Final phases of testing. Not allowed to say which ones those are going to be just yet, but over the next few days, we're going to be able to reveal what those Super Troops are exactly. Now, whatever I end up putting on the thumbnail on this will not actually be a Super Troop. So if you saw some picture of some new-looking troop on there, I'm not using a picture of a Super Troop on that. I'm just finding the coolest, most different looking troop I can for the thumbnail, so that's not going to be any help for you guys. Like I mentioned before, the mechanics, how they're doing this thing is unlike anything they've ever done in Clash before, so a little bit later we're going to get into just how drastically that is going to change the game, but it's going to change the game forever, you guys. Now, worth noting, the 4 Super Troops they have ready are not the only Super Troops they're planning on doing, so in further updates, further in the future, we can look forward to many more Super Troops. Now, I know they've said that the Super Troops are going to have unique abilities, but I've got to tell you guys, it's a lot more than just that, all right? They're using different levels of housing space with extremely unique abilities, and really, it essentially makes them like a whole new troop, all right? Functionally, instead of just making a super, it's almost like having a whole new troop for each Super Troop. Big changes. I'm going to read a brief description from Supercell on what is a Super Troop. Super Troops are temporarily powered up versions of troops in the home village. Each Super Troop will have a unique ability that is different from the normal counterpart. These special units have spent some time in the mysterious new barrel-shaped building that sits near the trader, but what goes on inside is something left to be determined by future sages and mystics. However, when the troop emerges from the barrel, they feel refreshed, look fabulous, and are ready to go to battle. And I've got to vouch for them looking fabulous. You got to see the luxurious hair on some of these new Super Troops, along with some very interesting and very useful new abilities. Now guys, if you're wondering how can you get a Super Troop, well, first, in order to train all new Super Troops, you need to be a Chief of Town Hall 11 and up. That's right, guys. Town Hall 11, 12, and 13 for now. Of course, later Town Halls will also have access to it. But if you're at Town Hall 10 or lower and you want a Super Troop, the only way to do that is going to be to get that Town Hall upgraded. Don't rush, guys. Don't rush. You know, upgrade your heroes first, but work towards it because the funnest, most toys are at the higher Town Hall levels, so that should definitely be your goal, all right? So if you are Town Hall 11 and up, all you got to do is simply click on the new Super Troop building near the trader, and it will give you the option to decide which troop you want to superize. Access to Super Troops can be bought with resources. From what I've seen so far, it has been accessed with Dark Elixir, but that might not be final. That might not be what is going down in the future. They might still be making decisions on that, so don't go to the bank with that. That's just what I've seen and what I have a feeling it will be. Now, another cool thing about Super Troops that is, you know, quite a bit different than seasonal or temporary troops that you've seen is that Super Troops can be donated. So you can request in your CC to have Super Troops in there either on attacks or on defense. So, but in order to be able to donate that troop, you have to have it selected right then. I don't think you're going to be able to 1-gem that if you do not have it selected as a Super Troop. Now, what I mean by having a Super Troop selected is the fact that very unique mechanic I was talking about earlier that's nothing like they've ever done before in Clash of Clans is each Super Troop or Super Buff has only a 7-day duration. That 7-day duration is followed by a 7-day cooldown period before it can be used again. So you can only power up one Super Troop at a time, and once you select it, you're stuck with that one for 7 days. After that 7 days is over, you can select a different Super Troop, but the one that you just used is gonna be on a 7-day cooldown. A little bit later, we're gonna go over just how insane that is going to be changing Clash of Clans esports, Clash of Clans competition. Honestly, I don't even know if they'll end up sticking with it in the long term. I don't know if they realize how big the implications are for that on a competitive landscape. But one thing I want to take quick note of is the fact that some of these troops are going to be incredibly powerful on attack. Some of these troops are going to be incredibly useful on defense. So it's going to become a very important thing to have people in your clan that can donate each different level of troop. And since you only have one at a time, that is not always going to be the case. But guys, some of these things are literally gonna revolutionize attacking in Clash of Clans. But honestly, that's not the different part. That's something that happens every time that we get new troops. We see a shift in the meta, but it is that 7-day active period, that one at a time, and that 7-day cooldown that are entirely new in Clash of Clans, and that is going to have much bigger implications on the game and competition than just new meta of attacks because of new super troops, making for new strategies, making certain strategies easier, because that making other strategies less useful. It's that 7-day active and 7-day cooldown that is going to be drastically different and require a whole new type of strategy that we've never had to consider for in Clash of Clans. As far as timing, what troops you're going to need for what tournaments. Are you going to want to use the more powerful attack troops for this tournament, or perhaps you want to use it for the next tournament that's in a few days? So we're going to be seeing people prioritizing certain tournaments over other tournaments. Of course, the ones that make money, they're probably going to be saving all their options for. But even as those rounds go on, once you select your super troop, you're stuck with it for obviously the rest of the tournament. You're stuck with it for the rest of the week. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the 7-day active, 7-day cooldown plays out on the competitive scene. In just a few moments, I'm going to run through some scenarios just so you guys kind of have an idea how big an impact this is going to have on competition. But first, I do want to mention another facet of the super troop. While you have a certain super troop selected, you will not have access to the regular version of that troop. So let's just say, for example's sake, if there is like a super archer and you select a super archer to use it for some sort of attack or some sort of defense, you will not have access to regular archers until the 7-day super period is done. Now, I'm just using that as a pure hypothetical just to tell you guys how that is going to work. And off the bat, I don't see that having a lot of effect just from the super troops that they've chose to make super so far. But as they add more and more of the super troops to the game, I can definitely see that becoming an issue and a new interesting problem that we've never had to face before in Clash of Clans. Now, as far as specific examples, let's say Super Troop A is super OP for a new attack strategy, or maybe even an older attack strategy that Super Troop A just makes so much easier. Maybe this becomes the new most popular attack strategy using Super Troop A, all right? Now, let's say Super Troop B is OP on defense. This is the premier troop to be used in your defense. It really helps out on defense. Now, let's take this scenario and put this in a 5-man tournament setting. Let's say you got your 5-man team for an ESL style tournament. Now, most of those folks are going to want to be using that Troop A, or at least have the option, because this is not just for one war, this is throughout a whole tournament. And if a troop is that OP, everybody's going to want to have access to that attack strategy. But if Troop B really is that powerful on defense, maybe you have one designated member that has that Troop B to donate into the other defensive CCs, obviously cannot donate it to himself. But if you make that call, then that player will not have access to that Super Troop A or the attack strategies using Super Troop A throughout the entire tournament. So it's gonna be super interesting, you guys. Now look at another scenario. What if your team has multiple tournaments? What if you're fighting in tournaments all the time, all right? Your main account, your big bad Town Hall 13 that's fully maxed that you're competing with in all these different tournaments. Maybe you got CW Elite, finals or whatever, or maybe some 5-man practice round. Well, what if you have them back to back, or just a few days apart, or even only a week apart? Let's say you used, Super Troop A that's OP on offense or OP for a certain attack strategy in a previous tournament, but you have another tournament the next week. You're not going to be able to use that Super Troop anymore, and that's going to affect your personal performance in that tournament, also going to affect your team's performance. So we're going to start seeing, if they stick with this 7-day cool-off period, you're gonna start seeing teams that are prioritizing which tournaments they want to win the most and just saving those super troops for those tournaments. It's going to be super interesting to see how this plays out in the long term. Thanks for hanging out, you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.